Jacey's Creek podcast members. We're starting off strong here in 2022. Your girl was supposed to come back in July of 2021, but I failed. I hate when podcasts go, I was supposed to come out on this day, and then I listen 3 years later, and no one cares. So we're not going to go all in the details, but the main story is senior year, broke my wrist, kind of got depression, forgot about my responsibilities. There, bam, done. If you follow my Instagram, which is Witter and Potter, you should totally follow it if you don't, you understand that I have not been posting. And the reason why I've not been posting is because I just forgot about social media. I'm going to be completely honest. I'm supposed to move in May, so the goal in season 2 is to be done by June or July. That is my goal. If you have not already, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to any of these platforms, because I'm back. We're going to do this thing again, and I'm really excited to have you guys done, and we're going to do maybe 1 episode a week, maybe 2, but the goal is to be doing this on Sunday, so put your subscription notifications on for Sunday. And I have a lot to talk about for season 2. We have a lot of Pacey and Andy scenes, which I have thoughts on that. We have a lot of Dawson and Joey scenes, which I have a lot of thoughts on that. If you want to watch while you listen, you can totally watch and listen at the same time. You can go to my YouTube channel, and it will be right there. We're going to have a lot of fun here. Make sure that you watch the episode before you go in here, because there are a lot of spoilers. I'm really excited to get back into it, and without further ado, let's get into it. Another thing that I want to say is what this episode is about. So every episode, I always do this. We go on what it is and the summary and the air date. So today we have The Kiss. It came out October 7th, 1998. In this episode, after their wildly passionate kiss, Dawson and Joey fall to the prey of the all-too-normal insecurities and uninsecurities that applied the death of a polygamous relationship in the birth of a romantic. On top of that, Joey needs to make a minimum decision whether to go to France in a grief-stricken. Jen keeps looking to Dawson for support to the wake of the grandfather's death. It all seems to the deck stacked against the couple. Meanwhile, Pacey needs a new girl in town. Andy McPhee, we love Andy sometimes, who gives the wisest of a taste of his own medicine after he ministers a police officer. And Mitch visits a divorce lawyer without telling Gail, but we don't really care about Mitch. We care about Pacey and Joey. So that is what the episode is about. And without further ado, let's get into this. So the first scene that we have is of Joey. Joey is in Dawson's bedroom, and there is a song playing in the background that says, "Say goodnight." That song, you know what the song I'm talking about. And Joey goes, "What was that?" And Dawson goes, "A kiss, I think." That's the best thing that he could come up with. Just, I think. You think? You think? And then Joey smiles and she says, "You kissed me." "Well, not ding dong." And Dawson says, "I know." Joey and Dawson both have that "should we kiss again" look on their faces. And Dawson says, "So?" And Joey says, "So?" And Dawson says, "Well?" And Joey says, "Well, what?" And Dawson says, "Well, that was a kiss." And Joey says, "Well, I'll say." And Dawson says, "So now what?" And Joey says, "I don't know." Okay, so let's talk about this scene real fast, because I don't like this. I don't like this at all. First of all, Dawson makes a big deal to be with Joey, and this is what he comes with. This is the answer that he comes up with. Snap out of it. Let's talk about this, because it really bugs me that this is the answer. Not, "Oh, Joey, let's fall together. Let's ride up into the seas like Pacey." He goes, "Well, I just kissed you." Like, no, I did not see that. I don't understand. But we get back into it, and they still don't know, and Joey walks and sits on the bed, and Dawson goes, "What?" And she says nothing, and Dawson walks over and sits next to her, and he goes, No, you were going to say something. What were you going to say?" I think Dawson is a scaredy cat in this scene. I really think Dawson is a scaredy cat. And he needs to get his act together and he needs to figure out what he wants. But no, that's not how it goes. And Dawson says, and Joey says, nothing. I mean, I don't know. I don't know what I was going to say. Joey, you knew exactly what you were going to say. All the girls do this. All the girls understand this scene. Because you want to say something, but you don't want to ruin it. So it's really hard to understand. And Dawson says, you were going to say we should have done that. I mean, that's what you were thinking, right? Talk about anxiety. And Joey says, actually, Dawson, I don't have that thought in my mind. And she stands up, but apparently that's what you're thinking. So, Joey, me too. Me too. I mean, if that's what comes up with the boy's mind, first of all, click, let's go, red flag. And Dawson says, no, and Joey says, look, why don't we sleep on it? And I hate that answer just like Dawson did. Because Dawson just looks at her. And then she says, not together. I mean, you in your bed and me in mine. He goes, right, absolutely. Obviously. Well, let's sleep on it, wake up, and this will all be a dream. I hate that. And Joey says, you mean it would never happen? And Dawson says, is that what you want? And Joey goes, is that what you want? And Dawson just stands there. And Joey says, okay, poof, didn't happen, Dawson. See you later. And she starts walking out the window. And Dawson goes, Joey. And he runs after her and puts his arm. And then they kiss. And And then this makes me so mad. Dawson never knows what he wants. I mean, ever. And this scene proves it. Like, just get your act together, Dawson, and skim with me to understand what I'm trying to say. Like, don't brush the girl off just because you want to brush the girl off. I mean, don't do that. Pacey would have done better. We all know how Pacey was, and Pacey did better than Dawson. And that is the end of season 2. I'm kidding. But we all know how Pacey was, and Pacey was just perfect. And Dawson just irritated me. So the second scene we have of Joey is when Bessie and Joey are pulling up in the truck, in which has a flat tire, and the truck stops and Bessie gets out. And Bessie goes, I could just open my mouth and scream. I hate this truck, it's always stopping. And Joey says, hey, these things happen, Bessie. Don't let yourself get down. And if we know anything about Joey, this is not the optimistic that she has. She is 100% not that type of person. So Bessie goes, your morning glow is highly suspicious. How many cups of coffee have you had? And Joey goes, can a person be in a good mood? And Bessie says, a person can, but you are Miss Pretty Scout. What aren't you telling me? And Joey goes, nothing. And Bessie says, then what is that look? And Joey goes, what look? And Bessie says, you have this look, this cheery yet sneaky I got lucky look. I know this look. And Joey tries to act casual and hide her ground, and she goes, Bessie. And Bessie goes, here, wait a second. Where were you last night? And Joey goes, nowhere. Dawson's. And Bessie goes, start talking. I love this one. I love this whole scene because it totally shows Bessie and Joey and their relationship. Because even though they kind of bicker a lot in season 1, we can slowly kind of see them like in a mother/sister form. And I believe as the show goes on, there's so much to come around with this. I love how Bessie is always there for Joey, even though she's not like the mother figure, but she is a sister figure, and she is both of them all at once. So in order for her to kind of look at Joey and just automatically know, I love that so much. Especially, I know when people do that with me, even though I'm not like the most positive, optimistic person, I know in my heart when people do that to me, I'm like, wow, you noticed me. I love that. Thank you. And if Joey was any other character, I don't think, and Bessie was any other character as well, I generally don't think that this would be a scene. I think it would kind of be like the none of your business kind of scene, but it just shows how much they have grown. And I don't think that Joey and Bessie would be talking about this in season 1. But that's just on. We have Pacey. We see the first scene of Pacey on season 2. And that is the most exciting part. Like, we love Pacey. Pacey, where you been? But we do not like what Pacey does in this episode. He is getting a haircut. And Pacey goes, I think there's a reason you got me up this morning for a morning trim. So come on, set the stage. I want the details. Only Pacey with her. And Dawson goes, I don't know how to explain this. It was in a word. And then we cut back, and I love this scene because it kind of goes back to Joey and it kind of cuts back to Pacey, and that kind of goes back to Joey and kind of goes back to Pacey. So then we go to Joey, and Joey says hot. Extremely hot. And then Bessie goes, what kind of kiss was it? Peck on the cheek, tongue through the trunks, and then fingers crawling at your necks. And Joey makes a face like she's slightly embarrassed, and Joey goes, Bessie, and then Bessie goes, did he touch your... And then it cuts back to Pacey and Dawson. And Pacey says, thingamajigger? That makes me laugh every single time. This whole scene, it makes me laugh. I think I have said this so many times throughout the podcast. Pacey makes me laugh. I mean, generally chuckle at everything. And Dawson says, get out of your gutter. No thingamajigger. It's just sweet, most romantic 4th of July fireworky waves crashing on the shore beyond any movie I could ever imagine kiss. If I was talking to my best friend Morgan about a kiss, I would not be talking about this. You want to know how I described my first kiss? I described it was taste like metal. You heard me right. It tastes like metal. Emily, what? I don't know. My first kiss was in a park, not in the boys' bedroom. I wouldn't even be in the boys' bedroom. And then Pacey says, congratulations, I'm so happy for you. But more importantly, are you gonna do it? And then it cuts back to Joey, and Joey says, don't even go there, Bessie. I will not extinguish this conversation right now. And Bessie goes, alright, okay, so what's next? And then it cuts back to Pacey and Dawson. And Pacey goes, after the kiss, somebody changes things. Question arise. And Dawson goes, what questions? And then it cuts back to Bessie and Joey, and Bessie goes, the sis cut France. And then it cuts back to Dawson and Pacey, and Pacey goes, we haven't discussed it. And I love this. I love this scene so much because Pacey says, I can't believe this. After years of generosity self-examination, you finally did it. You acted. I mean, I thought you and Joey are gonna draw this thing, will they, won't they drama for at least another couple of years. Sam and Diane didn't get together for at least 4 seasons, and Walter and Scott, they haven't even kissed. If you and Joey cannot get this romantic checkmate thing in for at least God knows how many years, anything is possible. How many times have I mentioned only Pacey? Only Pacey would be like, if I can't accept this, you can too. But I think Pacey was just kind of trying to accept it, and I think that's why he does his hair. Maybe I'm just reading into things. And Dawson goes, God, calm down, Pacey. I hate this reaction so much. I hate it. And Pacey says, no, I'm serious here. I can change too. I can be Pacey with her bad stud and man about this town. I can squirt with high possibility chicks. Kristen Livingstone, for example. And Dawson goes, senior cheerleader? Let's not abandon all sense of reality here. I hate that. I hate that so much because it's just like, you can't get the senior chick no matter how you try. I bet Dawson can't get her. However, Pacey probably could. And Pacey goes, no more negative thoughts. And he pulls the lady's hand who's fixing his hair, and he goes, you know what, Molly? I need a new look. What do you say? We frost my tips or something? And I love this part. And Dawson goes, frost your tips. And Pacey's smiling this. I can see it in my brain. He just smiles. I like it. I just like it. But I don't like his frosted tips. I want to be happy when that. So then we cut to Pacey walking towards his walking towards his dad's police car with this frosted tips, and he gets in the car and he spots Christy Livingstone. And Pacey goes, "Hey, Christy!" And then he turns on the car and turns towards Christy, and that's when he hits, you guessed it, Annie McPhee. And Annie is about to have an anxiety attack, and she goes, "Oh my god, oh." And Pacey goes, "Great, just great. My father's gonna kill me." And Annie goes, "Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. Officer, please, I'm so sorry." "Yep, that's right. Annie thinks Pacey is an officer." But what does Pacey do? He just looks around, and then before he realized that she thought that he was a police officer, and Annie goes, I didn't see you pulling out, but I thought it was just so abrupt that, and Pacey goes, and Annie goes, "Oh my god, I just got my license, please be kind." And Pacey says, "I'm gonna have to see that license and your registrations too, little miss." And she finds them and hands them to Pacey, and we're all just laughing because this girl believes that Pacey is an officer when really he's not. That's just typical Pacey over here. And he gives Annie McPhee Rhode Island driver's license, and she goes, "Yes, sir. See, my family just moved to town. We were on over in Winston." And he goes, "The country club?" And she goes, "Yes. Is that a government?" And this is how we know that Pacey thinks that she is some rich girl, and this is how it continues. And Pacey says, "Do you realize the severity of what you have done here?" "Do ya?" And then Annie nods. And again, I'm just over here like, really, Pacey? You're gonna just intimidate the new girl in town with their fake police officer thing? And Pacey is standing, and he goes, sitting behind the wheel of a powerful and dangerous automobile is a huge responsibility. One lapse of your judgment and you could run over a cat, a child, a nun. Why does he say a nun? And then he continues by saying, I could have this license revoked. And then he does a snap, just like that. In fact, I think I'm going to take a look and book you right now. And Andy goes, no, you can't. And Pacey turns around for the police car, and she goes, please don't do that. I just got my license. Please don't revoke it. And Pacey goes, okay, maybe I can. Let's just let this one incident slide. But I just want you to know that I got my eye on you, Bondi. You cause any more trouble in Cape Side, and Officer Pacey is coming after you. Pacey, don't do that. And Anna goes, and she nods her head, and she says, okay, I understand. Thank you so much. Oh, and it was very nice meeting you. And Pacey turns back to his police car, and he just says, damn. I can't get this scene on my head because it's the first scene that we see, first of all, of Annie and Pacey. And I know I'm not a big fan of Annie and Pacey, and there's kind of a lot of reasons why. But I do think that Annie and Pacey as friends is really great. But I feel like in this scene, it just kind of shows Annie's personality, and it definitely shows Pacey's personality. Annie's kind of like one of those people who are just kind of freaked out by everything, and Pacey's just that one that's just silly and goofy all the time, and obviously he's not a real police officer, which luckily he won't get in trouble by that. But I wonder what Pacey's dad thought about all the situation, like what was going through his mind. How was he taking this? How did he take it when his son came home with like a crashed car? Just a thought. So when we see this scene, I just kind of wonder all those kind of things. And another thing is that there's a lot of good moments of Pacey and Annie, but I do think the beginning of that is one of my favorite parts. Is of Joey, and I believe we were on scene 3. So Joey is at her locker, and we see the teacher, and Joey I guess she was talking about France and how she couldn't go because, Dawson, because that makes total sense. So we see Mr. Elrod. I'm going to say that because I don't really know his name, how to pronounce it. I think it's I don't know. Anyway, So he said, "Good luck, Joey," and she said, "Thank you, Mr. Elrod. I really appreciate all your advice, but..." And then he says, "Goodbye, Miss Potter." And Joey walks back to her locker, and Dawson appears. So my opinion on her not going to France, I don't really think it was bad, but I don't think it was really good. I think she needed to go. There was a fan fiction that I've read where Joey went to France, but she was still with Pacey, and I really love that one. I think it's Me When I'm With You, or no, Only Me When I'm With You. And then we see Dawson walk up, and he goes, "Hi," and she says, "Hey, how are you?" And he says, "Good, yeah, how are you?" And Joey sighs and says, "I don't know, Dawson, I think I made the biggest mistake of my life." Which you did. You missed the opportunity of France, Joey. Of course you made the biggest mistake of your life. And Dawson, of course, the self-centered person that he is, he says he thinks it's him. He doesn't really say it, but you can tell in his face that obviously he thinks it's him. And Joey says, "I don't know, Dawson, and then Joey says, "France, I told Mr. Elrod I don't think I wasn't going." And she smiles, and then Dawson smiles, and he laughs and hugs her. So Dawson then says, "So Joey, sticking around Cape Side for some guy." Dude, it's not some guy. That's not what you say, Dawson. I kind of get mad about this because I'm like, it's not like she's like skipping her whole life for him. But in another way, like, imagine if Joey did come back, but like had a whole different experience with France. Like, imagine if they made a show based off of this. Like, how cool that would be. But then I know there would be no Pacey and Joey, and I know there would be no Dawson and Joey. So maybe not. And Joey says, "Yeah, if you're lucky, I'll introduce you to him sometime." So we kind of get the vibe of how they're going to be with a couple thing. Like, they're just like kind of joking back and forth, flirting back and forth. And he goes, "Oh, okay." And he leans in closer to her, and he's whispering, "Well, he is a very lucky guy." And she smiles, and they walk down the hall. And Joey says, "But seriously, Dawson, what do you think?" And he says, "I'm relieved. I'm ecstatic. I'm psyched. I'm aroused." And she goes, "Aroused?" And he says, "Yeah." And Joey says, "Put your hormones aside for right now, Dawson." And the thing that kind of made me mad was, like, why was Dawson not telling her to go to France? Like, why was he telling her, "Oh yeah, like, you should stay for me"? Like, he wasn't gonna come out and say that, but if she chose to go, would they do long distance? Would Dawson even do that? Would Dawson end up cheating? Would Dawson end up doing something? Like, what would he do if she ended up not staying in Cape Side? Like, what would he do? What would she do? And he leans and kisses her, and she says, No, Dawson, just for a second. Me not going to France, you and me talking dirty in the halls. I mean, do you think we're making some massive monumental mistake? I mean, things have been so complicated between us. And the thing that made me mad was, like, she knew from the minute it was a mistake. And I know Pacey and Joey have talked about this, like, together when they're like, "No, this is a mistake." But generally speaking, like, if you know it's a mistake, why are you doing it? Like, that just kind of gets in my mind. But I'm going to say that a lot in Season 3 and Season 4, because I'm like, there's a lot of topics, like, if you think it's a mistake, why are you doing it? But they're so cute together, like, that's the thing. Not Dawson and Joey. Like, I feel like them two are not together for a reason, but I also feel like they were kind of meant to be together because then they got to Pacey and Joey. But in another way, I feel like Dawson's self-esteem and Joey's self-esteem did not match. Because I feel like Pacey and Joey kind of blended each other out. But Dawson and Joey, they were just kind of there. You know what I mean? And Dawson replies to her by saying, "I think we'll be fine. I mean, granted, and we'll be entering some uncharitable boy/girl territory, but honestly, think
regardless of how complicated are on a day-to-day basis, we'll be fine. We'll content on the simple stuff. And Joey says, like what? And he says, like a date. And Joey says, like a date? And he says, mm-hmm. And Joey says, you and me on a date? And he says, yep. And she says, I don't know, Dawson. I was gonna watch TV tonight. I heard Luke Perry back on 90 to 110. And Dawson says, Saturday night, the museum is closing. It's the last show. I think we should go. And Joey says, will you still be a roast on Saturday night? And he says, I think I can guarantee that. And they continue walking, and then they're leaning in when Jen walks up. And here comes Miss Trouble over here. And she says, hey guys. And the thing that makes me mad is you can just tell that Jen likes Dawson. And Dawson is so oblivious. And Joey's not. And he goes, Jen, hey. And Joey says, hey, how's it going? And Jen says, not great. My grandpa, he died last night. And and Dawson says, oh my god, Jen, I'm so sorry. And Joey says, how are you doing? How is your grandma? And Jen says, she's okay. She's actually handling it better than me. And I'm like, why is Jen here if she's not ready for that? And poor Jen. I love Jen sometimes. But sometimes she can be a little bit nauseous. And Joey then says, is there anything we can do? And Dawson says, yeah. And Jen says, no, I'm fine. Actually, I think I'm gonna go head home. I was trying to stick it out today, but it doesn't seem like that's a great idea. And Jen looks away, and Dawson calls after Jen, and Joey says that you should go after her, and he says later, and they walk down the hallway. The thing that makes me mad is the fact that Dawson has to go chasing after Jen. Like, that's kind of sad, but at the same time kind of sweet. And poor Joey having to see that. Poor Joey. But in general, I think this scene kind of makes me mad that Dawson doesn't support her to continue going to Paris. Like, I think he should have done something. So then we are on scene 2 of Pacey. And we see Pacey in the hallway talking to some guys about the stunt that he pulled with Andy. And guess who overheard it? That's right, Andy. And Pacey says, trust me, it's there. And then he imitated outside. I'm pulling out for school. Trust me, go outside. I'm in the cruiser, in my dad's car. Give her the whole copper teen license registration. It was nothing. And he walks away, and Andy taps him on the shoulder. And she says, Officer Pacey. And then she says, you little stump. And I love that scene because it just kind of describes Andy and Pacey for a little bit. And he says, hey, little missy, how you doing? Can you keeping out of trouble? And she says, you know, impersonating an officer is a felony. I should call the police station and report you. And Pacey says, oh, there's a conversation I would love to hear as my father is the town's sheriff. And Andy says, I have been having major anxiety attacks to the point of medication ever since you pulled your little stunt. Spinning scenarios in my head, being carted off to prison and becoming a sex slave to a sin named Becker. I have no idea what she's talking about. And Pacey says, okay, now correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't you cause the accident? You hit me. I was just having a little fun, and besides, it was nothing compared to the hell my dad's been giving me. And you know what? Your country, Sab, is in one piece. So, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Like, he thinks she's like some rich girl, and really she's not. And then we see Christy Livingstone walk up, and Christy says, hey, Andy, and Andy says, hey, Christy, and Christy walks away. And then Pacey goes, hey, Christy. And then he turns to Andy and goes, didn't you tell me you're new in town? How do you know Christy Livingstone? And Andy says, well, unlike certain sewer rats, she made the effort to welcome the new and slightly insecure to stateside. And Pacey says, well, she probably didn't recognize me. I just have my frosted tips. And she says, you just had your tips frosted? And Pacey says, yeah. And Eddie says, your tips are an attempt to win a certain someone. And that Pacey just points at her like, you got it. And Eddie says, hot tips. Christy Livingstone is a homeless lesbian, so perhaps you should start barking at a different tree. And Pacey says, and perhaps you should stop barking altogether. Good one, Pacey. And Annie says, tell you what, here's my idea. I'll give you a soft spot for a pathetic glum loser like yourself. So if you like Christy, I'll set you up. And he goes, really? You'll do that for me? Little did Pacey know. Little did Pacey know. The thing that gets me is the fact that he said he frosted his tips. Like, Pacey, you are an idiot. I'm just gonna say that. Like, Pacey in this episode is somewhat an idiot. Like, why did you do that for a girl? Like, that is not a really Pacey thing, but when I really think about it, it kind of is, but it kind of isn't. In the next scene, we see Pacey at school watching Andy talk to Christy, and Andy says, go for it, Pacey, she's all ready for you. I got her primed. And Pacey says, and Tim says, there once was a girl named Christy. The thought of her nude makes me misty. What the heck is this? That's my whole thought in this. And he says, a night on the town, we'll both get down. By the end of the night, she'll have me kissed. And Pacey approached her and he says, Christy, hey. And Christy goes, Pacey, how are you? And Pacey says, great, how are you? And Christy says, good, what can I do for you? And he said, listen, I know this was sort of abrupt, seeing as we hardly know each other. In fact, we don't know each other at all. But I was wondering if you could change that and maybe get to know each other a little better. Take you out to dinner and a movie sometime, see if there's any resemblance of the future. So I was thinking tomorrow night. What'd he say? And she says, sound great. And he nods his head and turns around and then realizes he hasn't, said anything back, and he says, okay. Pacey. Little does he know, he's just getting tricked and she has a boyfriend, so. Okay. We cut to scene 5, I believe, of Joey. And she's sitting on the dock and Bessie walks up. And Bessie says, what are you doing here? And Joey says, nothing. Think about tonight. And she says, oh, the first date. This would be interesting. And then she realized that something's wrong with Joey, and she says, hey, what's wrong? And Joey says, I don't know, it seems weird. I mean, Dawson and I on a date? Doesn't that seem weird to you? And Bessie says, well, was it weird when you kissed? And Joey says, no, I mean, it felt right, but the thing is, it hasn't happened since then, and it was yesterday. And Bessie says, well, that's not unusual, because the way I see it, the second kiss is always tougher than the first. Sometimes Bessie, but not really at the same time. My second kiss wasn't that good. And Joey then says, well, we kissed more than once that night. And Bessie says, yeah, it only counts as one, that first kiss. It's the passionate one, the one that fills with desire and attraction, and all of that, but the second kiss is rational. You get time to worry and overanalyze than most women. And they preferred that first kiss, but I'm practical to the second because it's something more. You get that second kiss, Joey, and you know it'll be great. It'll be real. It'll be meaningful. And I love that scene because, again, it just shows how much Bessie and Joey mean to each other, and it's such good motherly, sisterly advice. And I feel like Bessie's right in a way, and I also believe if Bessie had a daughter, she'd be so good at it. That's just my opinion. I really wish Bessie had a daughter and we also got to see her with Joey, but it's also good that Bessie had a son because it kind of blends it up. So then the next scene that we see is Dawson heading to Joey on a speedboat, and Joey's fixing her hair, Dawson's heading to Joey, and Joey is putting on her makeup. Dawson is coming to Joey's, and Joey is putting on her necklace and looking in the mirror, so she's getting ready. And Joey is waiting on Dawson outside, and Dawson is walking up, and this is my favorite part. He picks a weed. He doesn't pick a flower, you guys. In my opinion, he picked a weed. It's like he didn't give her a bouquet of flowers. No. He picked a weed. He did not pick flowers. And I can go on this tangent forever because it makes me mad. It really does. And this is what he says. And Joey says, hey, and he says, hey, it's my act as your date. I thought chocolates, diamonds, convertibles, but I settled for the jade. And what the heck? Who says that? Like, I don't know. I know Dawson's not my type. It is just like the definition of that is plant leaf practically. Like, it's just a flower, but you mean a weed? Like, you didn't pick her a flower. You just picked her like a plant that came out of her garden. Like, you didn't like go to the store and get her like a bouquet of flowers. I'm forever gonna know about this. And Dawson says, so shall we? And she says, yeah. And he says, okay, I'm really glad we bypassed the evening with will she kiss me drama, so it's better to stay moving from here out. And it just makes me mad. And Joey says, yeah, but you know how the eternity of will I already kissed her, so we check into the motel and go like porn star ad anxiety. And then Dawson says, yeah, I think I can handle it. Their humor is not my humor, so sometimes it takes me a minute. They're just so awkward. And Dawson says, how about you start with something very simple, something that's beyond this month pen's form. And Joey says, and what would that be, Dawson? And Dawson says, I would really like to hold your hand. Okay, in my opinion, you should never ask someone to hold your hand. You can just slip your hand in. But when I was like first dating someone, that's how I was. Like, I really want to hold their hand, but I don't know if it's okay, and I don't want sweaty hands. But like, in my opinion now, like, I get their age, that's just how they are. But now, like, you just hold someone's hand. You don't have to ask for their permission. And Joey says okay, and then they hold hands. It just bugs me, you guys. I don't know why it bugs me, but it really does. So the next scene, Dawson of Joey. Dawson says, I can't believe they're tearing this place down. And Joey says, they probably put something horrible that makes this place even more boring than it is. And Dawson says, I guess our movie watching for all the restriction to us in the bedroom. Too bad for us. And Joey says, a worse face than death. And they smile, and the song, and they're like, and their faces are like should be kiss face. And the light dims, and Joey turns to the movie, but she places her hands in Dawson's. And I don't know, it's kind of like one of those scenes that are like simple and cute and elegant, but at the same time you just want them to completely stop because it's just kind of weird. That's just my opinion. So the next scene is of Pacey. So he's actually standing outside the same place that Joey and Dawson are. And he's whistling, and he goes, Christy makes me misty, but at the end of the day, she'll have me kissing. And then frustrated when she gets here. I love that scene so much. He's like, just like, come on. And I love those so much. They're just out, like he's outside where Joey and Dawson are. Makes me so sad. So then we see Jen kind of ruin it all for them. And Jen is at the movies, and Jen needs Dawson's advice. And she's like, why do you need my advice? And then he whispers to Joey, like, I don't know what she's talking about. And then he goes, isn't your grandma here? And she goes, yeah, I just thought I would sit with you guys. And I don't really like that she sits by Dawson. Like, kind of irritates me, but at the same time, I'm like, drama. And Dawson goes, I don't know what she's talking about, like, all this. And she goes, I thought afterwards we can go to the ice house and grab some food, unless I'm not welcome. Like, and Dawson says, no, it's not that you're welcome at all. It's just, and he kind of cuts off. And she says, no, I know, I should have come. And she walks away, and you know what? You know what he does? He runs after her and leaves Joey alone. He leaves Joey alone on his date. Like, you beg for this girl, and this is what happens. So the moral of the story is Jane walks over, and that's what happens. And I'm just like, sitting there, like, a little bit confused, and Joey is probably confused too. And I'm just like, why did you beg to go on a date with Joey if you were gonna go after Jen? Like, I know that her grandpa died, and that makes a bunch of sense, but at the same time, I'm like, have some respect, man. Like, just tell Jen to kind of talk about it later, like, not get this settled, or at least explain the situation to Joey. Like, that would be more appropriate. Like, hey, don't get jealous, I'll be right back. I just need to talk to Jen, because if I don't talk to her now, like, nothing's gonna happen. I promise. Like, that's a respectable thing to do. So, Joey leaves that situation. And because when Dawson comes back, he finds the seat empty with a flower on it. But then we cut to Pacey, who is flipping coins into the fountain. And Christy walks up, and Christy goes, Pacey? And Pacey says, Christy, hey, whoa, you made it. Great, thanks for coming. I was thinking we could go for dinner. We're probably late for the movie, but that's okay. And Christy says, actually, I can't stay. My boyfriend's waiting for me in the car. And he says, excuse me? And I love this part because how she says it. Tonight's our 5th week anniversary. He wasn't so stoked about my plans. Listen, I just had to stop by and tell you how brave I think you are. And Pacey says, brave? And Joey says, I know it's supposed to be a secret, but your friend Annie told me about your condition. And Pacey goes, I'm not really about you. And poor Pacey. And Christy is like, and I think it's inspiring about how you live your normal life in a constant cloud of death. This is so dark. Like, when you really think it, and he's like, the constant cloud of what? And Joey's like, Christy's like, she told me about your heartstring. And he goes, my heartstring? That. And Christy goes, yeah, the strength that you have across your heart, and at any moment it could be strangling your heart, and you could stop and breathing. First of all, this girl's stupid if she thinks it's real. And we all know that. And she continues by saying, she said you wanted to keep it a secret, no special treatment or anything, and I really respect that. See, I suffer from asthma, and I would hate it if anyone treated me differently because of that. What the heck? Like, what? Okay. And she goes, well, good night, Pacey, and I really think you're quite a guy. And he says, don't mention it. And then the boyfriend in the background goes, Christy, come on, let's go. And we see Christy running into the background. I love this part of the scene because she's just running, and I love it so much, and it's so cool. And Pacey over here is just like, that did not happen. Poor Pacey. And I think, like, later Christy comes into the show again, and, like, I feel like he kind of explains how Christy Livingstone is like a metaphor, and he explains it to everybody, and I feel like that expectation of just wanting to love someone, but they can't love you back and you know that they're taken, is like one of the hardest things. And I don't really think that Christy was one of those people that you should continue going over, but we'll get into that in a minute. So then we see Pacey at the store, and he spots Annie and approaches her, and he, under his breath, says, oh yeah. And Annie says, Pacey, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be in bed, hooked to a life support system? And he says, very funny. What the hell is a heart shank anyways? And she says, I made it up. Pretty clever, don't you think? And I love how she says that. It's just like, kind of like rubbing in her face. I feel like Pacey has a certain type, and Andy and Joey are kind of his type, because they're like the smart girl, the perfectionist, but at the same time he kind of blends it out because he is not a perfectionist whatsoever. And he goes, oh yeah, very sarcastically laughing at this. And she says, look, Pacey, I don't know you, but if you thought for 1 second that Christy Livingstone was going to dump her beautiful all-state boyfriend for you, a sophomore with a high heartstring, you're deadly delusional. Dang, Andy, that's what made me not like her, because I'm like, oh, you treat Pacey like that. We kind of snapped her. Like, where were you when Miss Jacobs was hitting on him? Like, I told myself I wasn't going to talk about this in the podcast anymore, but, like, where was Andy when we needed her? And Pacey said, that's great. Why don't you just rub some salt in this open, painful wound? You know, Christy Livingstone, she was kind of like a metaphor, you understand? The same reason I dyed my hair. I was under the impression that might go unlucky ways, but after what happened tonight, obviously not. Back to the old Pacey, the black sheep, the loser, but they're not. And Andy says something that I really like, because it kind of like snapped him out of it. Like, I get why Pacey was doing this, because Miss Jacobs happened, like everything happened, and Joey happened, and now he's just sitting there like, why can't I get a girl? And Andy goes, well, I think you should dye your hair back. I mean, forgive me, but it looks hideous. And Pacey says, thanks. And she says, don't use that. And he was holding like some type of peroxide. And Annie says, that's peroxide. That's going to strip all the color out of your hair. Here, use this. But put it in for 20 minutes and rinse. That should do the trick. And Pacey says, you're not pulling a little prank on me. You know, I screw you, you screw me. And Annie says, guess you're going to have to take that chance, wouldn't you? And then she walks by and says, bye, Officer Pacey. And he has that grin on his face. I love this scene because it really is the start of Andy and Pacey, and I feel like once we get used to that, it's adorable. But I really do feel like the more that Annie comes into the scene, the more I feel like she changes Pacey. And the metaphor of speaking, like, it goes back to Miss Jacobs, and it goes back to Joey, because we saw that in season 1. Like, the more that we go into these scenes, the more that it makes sense why he's doing the things that he does. Like, a lot of people were confused about the prom episode. He did that because he had all of these things going on. It was just building and building and building, and then finally it just snaps. And I feel like this was the episode where we kind of like, this is the season that we fall in love with Pacey more, because we see different kind of things that go on. But in my opinion, I do think the Frosted Tips should last a couple episodes. That would have been a little bit funny. I feel bad for Joshua Jackson having to dye his hair for only 1 episode. So then we have the very, very last scene of Joey. We already saw or talked about the last scene of Pacey, so now we cut to Dawson walking up to Joey on the pier, and Dawson says, I was hoping you might be here. This was the beginning of a ridiculous reframe. Joey, you have to know that I have no feelings for Jen. Why didn't you say that earlier? Like, generally speaking, like I said earlier, why didn't you just tell her right off the bat what was going on? Like, her grandpa died, I need to talk to her because she needs a friend. And Joey says, Dawson, it's okay. And Dawson says, it is. And Joey says, yes. Do you want to know why I didn't go to France? Because I wanted to so badly. I mean, in France, I could have started over, you know. I wouldn't be Joey the waitress, or Joey the daughter of a convicted, or Joey the half will they won't they couple of the century. I didn't go to France because it seemed like that was the easy way out, you know. The easy escape from my life, which in spite of the few highlights is pretty pathetic. But I didn't want to take that easy way out, Dawson. It would be like me sticking around here and only making me stronger. Then there was you. Dawson Leary, who finally got the clue. Dawson, who... But I have to tell you, Dawson, as complicated as our friendship was, it's not even compared to how complicated whatever you and I are bound to be. that is very, very, very true. Like, they're the most complicated couple I've ever seen. And Dawson says, really? I don't know why they like talk in like paragraphs. Like, nobody does this as teenagers. And he says, what you and I have has never been simple. But that's what I mean. We're not going to be scouchy. Besides, who's to say that we go to France someday, right here in Campside? We'll make a river scene, a tour, a la-da-da, the favorite spots, the lovers, and a break from the view, and all this different kind of stuff. There's no Eiffel Tower, but that's all we got. And Joey starts swinging because they're on the swings. And Dawson sits down, and they're faced opposite directions. I do like this scene. The scene is kind of cute, as much as I don't like them. And Dawson says, but don't forget about the France Fauché opportunities in town, French fries. And Joey says French toast. And Dawson says French doors, and they French kiss. And Joey says French kiss, the second kiss, the Russian one, the one that gets out dots. And he says, you know, I found out they're replacing the Reno with a movie theater. And Joey says they're replacing one theater with another. And he says upgrade, bigger seats, bigger screen, bigger sound. They said it's supposed to be great. And Joey says, but why change something if it already works? And Dawson says, because it will work even better. It'll be simple, Joey. You know, all this talk about a second kiss. And she says, yeah. And Dawson says, well, it's kind of put to me in that mood for a third. And she says, me too. And Dawson says, I told you it was going to be simple. And they kiss again. Okay, so here's my recap of the episode. You guys ready? Why didn't Dawson just do something big as soon as he heard that Joey was going to like skip France for him? Like, why didn't you make a scene, like a boat scene? I bet Pacey would have done a boat scene. But one thing I have realized, and this might have been like a whole different perspective if you really think about this, I think it's the love languages that make Pacey and Dawson a little bit better. Because Pacey is like the word kind of guy, while Dawson's kind of like the simple actions, gifts, that kind of stuff. So when you really compare this kind of scene, I do feel like Dawson should have done better in making Joey feel special. I feel like this was already a crappy relationship from the very beginning. There was no communication, there was nothing that was going on, and they just kind of settled. Like, I do feel like that Joey would be running away from Dawson. She would continue going on and she would go to France, but I do feel like Joey didn't go to France because I feel like that was the easy way out. I don't like that whatsoever. I don't like that Joey just kind of bailed on France. That will forever make me mad. I feel like she should have gone. But I also feel like there was another way to get out of it, and she did a good job at it. But at the same time, it still makes me mad. So that is all for this episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, and put on your post notifications for every Sunday. Turn your brain on. There may be 2 episodes in a week, so I may do Sunday or Friday or whatever. It may be Saturday and Sunday, but I will have to see how this week's go, because I have school. I'm a senior, so we're going to see how this goes. My goal is to get all of this done by May, hopefully. So my goal is to kind of post on Friday and Saturday. I post 3 times a week on my Instagram. I post sometimes on my TikTok. It's Pacey and Joey. And I can't wait to see you guys next week. Hopefully I will not be sick. If you have not, can you not tell? Thank you guys again for staying around. I have missed this so very much, and I cannot wait to come back.